Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Lori from Danville Regional Foundation, and we're having a conversation today with some local leaders about the pandemic impacts that we have had both locally and how the things in the U.S. have affected what's going on here in Danville. So first I'll introduce you to who is in attendance. I'm going to go around my screen. I see, so Tim Clark is here. He's the president of Blair Construction, joining us from wonderful Gretna, Virginia. Alisa Davis, who is the manager of Reid Street Gallery in beautiful Chatham, Virginia. Ramsey Yeatts, president of Ramsey Yeatts and Associates Realtors, and Greg Anderson, a vice president with First Citizens Bank. And moderating today is Ted Abernathy, who is with Economic Leadership, done many things here in our community, helping us look ahead and think about the future, and he's going to help us with that right now. So Ted, I'm just going to hand it over to you. And if any of you have any questions that come up as you're listening to everyone talk, please put them in the chat. I will be more than happy to do that. So, and relay those. So thank y'all very much.
So Lori, thank you. It's nice to be with everybody in the Dan River region again. As Lori said, I've done a lot of work there, and including the economic development strategy for the region. Our company spends a great deal of our time trying to help our clients see the future, and that used to be pretty difficult back in 2019. In 2020, as you might imagine, it got a little bit more complicated. Everybody wanted to know the answer to two questions, and they still do. When will all of this be over? And what will everything look like when it's over? It's getting easier to imagine the end. I think that as we all get our vaccinations and we all do our stuff, that sometime the second half of 2021 probably looks a lot different than the second half of 2020, and a lot better. But that second question's tough. What's the new normal look like? What's different? And as we go around the country, we're working in about a dozen states, and we do a lot of work for state chambers of commerce. I serve as the economic policy advisor to the Council of State Chambers. That's the question everybody's asking, is what happened to us, and what was temporary, and what's going to be permanent? And I try to look through those lenses, and the easiest lens for me to see through over the last year has been my kids. I have two grown children who are both married, and so the four of them sort of count as my kids now. I know many of y'all sort of think that way. My daughter-in-law works in an ER at Vidant in Greenville, North Carolina, and her world has been nonstop terror and craziness now for almost a year. And we worry about her, but she's had her vaccine now, and but they're still full. My son runs a contracting company, and his business has been wide open. They've had to hire more people. They've had to do more renovation. They've had to do more safety. It's completely different. My son-in-law is the logistics manager for a major company. They own Wrangler and Lee Jeans, and they get a lot of their stuff from overseas, and everything's been turned upside down for him. And they're trying to figure out how to reshore some of their work. And then my daughter, the love of my life, had a very successful events company and wedding business, and it's been destroyed. It took her 10 years to build it, and it went away in 1 year, and she's trying new things now. And so when we think about what the pandemic has meant, a couple things come to mind for us. One is the answer is complicated. It depends on where you were in the economy and what you were doing, and what your business was. The second is it's disruptive. It doesn't matter if it was disruptive good or disruptive bad. Your world probably was turned upside down. Even if you think about my 87-year-old mother, who thank goodness now has her vaccine and is going back to the beauty shop for the first time in a year, which I've now heard about every time she's been, because she's been stuck at home for a year. And at 87, as she says, it's not a good time to be stuck at home because you don't know how many more chances you're going to get. So disruptions there. And then the third thing, and the thing I think when we talk to companies around the country, is acceleration. That everything that was starting to happen in 2016 and 17 and 18 and 19 happen faster. And whether that was online shopping or whatever it was, banking over your phone. I mean, all those kind of things just happen faster. So more complicated, more disruptive, and accelerated. And it's really personal. And so what we wanted to do today is we wanted to have our panel of experts from your region talk a little bit about what's been happening there. And I'll jump in with some things that we hear nationally along the way and ask some questions. But we wanted to make it as personal as we could. And as Lori said, we wanted to let you ask questions. So please use the chat feature. We've got some questions that we're going to bounce around. We had a few that y'all sent in. So if you send in questions when you register, I do have those, and we'll try to get to all of those. But as you hear things that you want a little more information about, or if you just have a question you don't think we're going to answer very well, then give us a shout out on the chat, and Lori will let us know that. So I want to go around the panel first and just start with an easy question. Before I ask you to predict the future, I'm going to ask you to look to the past and just tell me, what are two things that the last 12 months, what have you missed the most that has been changed in your life? What kind of things have been disrupted that you miss? And I'm a Southern guy, so Alisa, I'm sorry, but you get to go first because ladies first in my world. As long as my mom's still alive, I'm going to have to keep doing that. So what have you missed in the last 12 months?
Well, we have a restaurant and cafe and gift shop. And one of the things that's always been wonderful about it is that it is a place where people come to meet and gather. And of course, that was the first thing to go, is that we're not meeting and gathering the way we were. And so I miss that part the most. I miss the energy of having everybody in the building and the friendship and the pleasure that we had going on under this roof.
Tim, what have you missed this last year?
Food and people.
Yeah, food.
Food and people. So the inability to just call on people and visit with folks, whether they're our subcontractors or suppliers or clients, and the ability to just go somewhere to dinner with friends.
Greg, how about you?
I will piggyback off of Tim's statement, just the people. But I think one of the things that I've really missed, and this sounds sort of crazy, are the sporting events with the high school sports. In this community, that is a gathering place that I've met so many people at these different games, and not being able to go to it is really been a bummer for me. So I'm excited to get back to some sense of normalcy where I can attend sports and actually see people.
And Ramsey, how about you?
Sure. I think traveling and trips is probably something that my family and I have missed. But I also agree with Greg. Having a 13-year-old son who likes to play basketball, who I've coached on his team the last 3 or 4 years, and that just comes to a screeching halt, not being able to play in leagues, also not being able to maybe do a basketball ministry, which is something that I've been involved in the past as well. And the concern there, of course, is what are our kids doing at home, stuck at home with video games and so forth, instead of being out and about, being active.
I think when we've seen a lot of data around the country that the impacts on families has been tremendous. I just can't even imagine what it would have been like to have my daughter home at 13. I mean, as I said, she's 30 something now and gone, but when she was 13, 14, telling her she couldn't be with her friends, I don't know if I'd have survived that along the way. So I think families, all of our families, and the mental health that comes with not being able to have that contact. And this is nice. It's great to be able to talk to you this way, but I think we'd all agree that it's not a substitute. It doesn't work for that human contact that we have. Let's talk a little bit more about your businesses and what it's been like and how it's impacted you. Greg, you want to start us in the banking world? I bet it's been a roller coaster the last 12 months.
It has been a blur. It's really hard to believe that it was around this time, I guess 12 months ago. For us, it was a real immediate shift that our branches closed in March. We were fortunate that we were able to reopen in June. We have been open since. You know, it really impacted us. There was a change during the period in which we were closed. We had to work with a lot of our clients that would come into the branch. We had to get them to bank online through mobile banking, which was really a shift. Now that we're open, there's still clients that are not comfortable coming into the branch. We've had to do a lot more by phone. Another thing that's really interesting is just the things that we take, you know, just mailing items. We have to mail a lot of things, and the time that it's taken for things to be delivered has really impacted a lot of people. It's caused bills to be paid late, et cetera. And then travel. You know, we used to travel a lot to meetings and things, and now Zoom, the WebEx has become the norm. So, and in banking, it changes daily. So the changes that we've had over the last 12 months are just a start. I would love to know what is coming up, but it's that crystal ball that I don't have.
Well, Greg, I did some work for a banking association in the Midwest, and some of the presidents were telling me that they were amazed that they had that mobile banking had been available for years. They had the software that was something that a few of their customers used, but then when they were forced to, a lot of people started using it. And then there was that mix of people who all of a sudden, wow, this is easy, I love it. And the people who were, I don't get this at all, I'm frustrated, y'all got to help me with this. Did you find a lot of people using the tools that you already had, or did you have to develop new things?
Well, and I work with the commercial clientele, so they were already using it. It's the retail clients, and it really differs by branch. That we have some branches that there are a large amount of clients that use it. Some of our branches, the more rural branches where the internet access is not great, they rely upon the actual branch. So it really differs, but and even now that we're 12 months into this, we still have some clients that still struggle with it. So it is a mixture. The younger clients, of course, adapt a whole lot quicker, but we've really had to do a lot of training on it. But I think it's going to be the way. The real question is going to be, will clients come back to the normal way that they did banking, or will they continue to bank mobile and digitally?
I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more. That crisis management versus permanent change is the real question everybody's got. Tim, how about in the construction area? What's your last year been like, and what kind of changes have you seen?
We've been very blessed and very busy, and we, of course, with the standard answers, kind of being the learning how to work remotely, where we had a lot of that infrastructure in place, we just didn't use it that often. So being able to use that, changing from face-to-face to Zoom. But for me, kind of learning to, I guess I could call it like fear management, because as the leader, the de facto leader, people come to you and they want to know, like, well, what do you think? Well, what should we be doing? Is it safe to do this? Can I go here? We had some scares. We did not have an outbreak. I had COVID. Several of us have had it, but it hasn't been a outbreak situation in our office. We're fortunate to be spaced out, but the fear that comes along with that, especially I'd say the first 6 months, kind of was being sensitive to that and being sensitive to let people kind of learn and progress as they felt comfortable, but also being a good source of reliable information for folks both in the office and in the field was a challenge for us, but I think it was a good growing, platform for us as well.
Yeah, there's a term, we're doing some work for the Florida Chamber on the mental health aspects within business, for their safety council. And there's a new term called doom scrolling that I had never heard of before, that when people get scared, they just go on the internet and get scared more and more and more scared. And they do look to leaders to try to help them out of that. There's a lot of factors that on mental health that have not gone the right way the last year in America. But have you also in the construction? I know DIY construction has gone crazy, and it's been hard to find materials and things even at your local stores. As a contractor, have you seen shortages? Have there been things that just all of a sudden, whoops, I can't find that anymore?
So there's been some of that. It's been more of individual part, kind of through the middle. It was more individual part pieces. Over the last 90 days, there have been some very significant cost increases on lumber, steel, anything with steel in it, and PVC, curiously enough. So conduits, plumbing pipe, things like that are in short supply, and they are price protected for a very short period of time. So if you came to me and said, I want to build a new building, and I gave you a price on just the steel package of that building, you would need to decide in 15 or 20 days if you wanted to move forward, or open yourself up for a price increase, which have probably averaged 6 or 7% every 3 weeks for the last 90 days.
Wow. And we've heard that builders it's hard to find capacity in the construction business because things have moved along in different sectors differently. Housing has gone well. A lot of industrial manufacturing has been doing really well around the country. Obviously, retail, hotels, not quite as much. So it's a real mixed bag within the industry, I would imagine.
And we're doing some retail and restaurant built new construction right now. But it is a very busy time. I mean, most of the things that we're starting right now, we're in that pricing phase kind of before this ramp up. And so we've got probably 6 new starts that'll happen here in the next 30 days.
Ramsey, in the brokerage business and business, has it been as exciting and busy as I think it has been?
Well, I think as we look back probably 12 or 15 months, I would say that end of 19 throughout 19, we had a good market here for residential homes and land sales. We turned the corner there in 2020, got off to a good start. And then, of course, everybody wondering what the effects of COVID are going to be. So I think there was probably a 30-day window there that a lot of uncertainty and a lot of questions and things kind of slowed up. We started to think, okay, how are we going to get through this? And then all of a sudden, the floodgates came open. And, I think that a lot of that was due to other folks from other markets outside of our state or our area wanting to be here. And I think some underlying factors for that were things that have always been that case, and that would be climate, low taxes, that type of thing. But I think just the fear and uncertainty of COVID has really had people in larger market areas and so forth wanting to come here to be in maybe a relatively low COVID infested area. And then again, the low taxes, the climate and so forth, and really the price points of what they're able to sell their property for in those markets, to get here. So, we had a really good year in 2020. The issue that started about November, October is a lack of inventory. So we have always heard of these markets, and not sure if we really wished for it, but we are in a similar market as to where other markets are at this point in time. And that's led to doing business a little differently, having to have a property come on the market this week, say a couple $100,000, and seeing 16 or 18 different people that want to see it. Spoke with an agent a little while ago of having 4 or 5 offers on it. That seems to be the norm now rather than the exception. And it's a different market than we've ever seen here. And one that's going to take some time to get the balance of supply and demand back in place.
So are the people looking, have you noticed that they have any new or different expectations or wants from properties these days? We're reading a lot that tastes are changing and requirements are changing.
Well, I think there's all kinds of variables out there. I mean, there are some folks who look at school districts and that's important. Some folks, it's kitchens and bathrooms and remodels. Some of it's, finished space in the basement and so forth. But one thing that I'll probably touch on later if we have a little bit more time is what this pandemic has done is obviously for everybody that's on the panel today and anybody that's watching, anybody in the world, it's brought to rural areas like us the issue of the fact that we just don't have high-speed internet access. And I had a property in my neighborhood across the road listed, and 5, 6 people looked at it. The first 3 or 4 said, "No way, no how. You don't have high-speed internet here. You can only do a hotspot type of thing." And they bypassed that property. And I don't even live in a really rural area. I live in a subdivision that was established in 2000, 5 or 6 miles outside of the city of Danville. So you can imagine what some of the other properties are faced with as far as having those internet capabilities for people to work from home. And of course, as we all know, for our kids to do virtual learning in lieu of being in person.
Yep. We will get back to that because those are the kind of things everybody is talking nationally about, people wanting to get more land and move to more rural areas, but they still want and need certain things in order to be able to do that. So, Alisa, I saved you for last, not because I wanted to specifically, but your sector of the economy has probably been hit the hardest in the country. The leisure and hospitality sector, if we look around the country now, we're down about 4% overall employment from where we started, but the leisure and hospitality sector and retail sectors are down close to 20%. So I'm hoping that your year has been better, but what's it been like for you?
Well, it's been tough, just like everybody else. We've had to kind of figure this out as we've gone along of what can we do, what do we have to do, what do we need to do. And as Tim said, people are looking to us to know what's safe and what's right to do. And we're in an interesting position too, that we're protecting our customers, we're protecting our staff, and we're protecting, the general public and our families at home. And so we're in a kind of a tenuous position. Speaking for us specifically, we're fortunate that we have a backer who's been able to help us stay open. Sales obviously are down way, low from what they were. And when COVID hit, we were just kind of hitting our stride as a restaurant. We'd been open about a year and a half, and we're just kind of getting that market share of people that knew what we were doing here. And then COVID came and we closed. March 16th is the date that everybody knows. We closed in March, and I thought, okay, well, we'll probably be back around June.
Yep.
It didn't work out that way for anybody, but we eased into opening back up. We started opening up on Thursdays and Fridays for takeout only. And then we added and eventually reopened all the way. Obviously we're doing a lot more takeout business than we were doing before. We had to integrate online ordering capacity. We had to adjust our inventory buying. We had to adjust our staffing, all of that stuff for the new mode of doing business. I'm proud that we've been able to hang on and serve our customers in the way that we've been able to. The weather this week has improved traffic. We've had a lot of people in here, but and a lot of to-go business still. And it's not that same energy that we used to have with, lots of people in here just gathering and being together and enjoying each other. But we're getting there. Feels like we're getting there.
You're optimistic about the summer and fall
I
this year?
am. Yeah, I am. I think everybody's ready. Everybody's just kind of waiting. And as I see the vaccines are starting to roll out a little more smoothly and numbers are growing of people that have gotten the vaccines, and just kind of the buzz I get from the people that come in here that say, I've gotten my shot, I've gotten my second shot, you know, I feel better, and we've had 2 groups this week, birthday groups, you know, of people that I haven't seen since last March. So yes, I would say things seem to be improving and opening up, and I do feel much more optimistic.
Now, two data points that you might like. Nationally, after being able to spend time with friends, the number one thing people say they've missed the most is eating out. And nationally, maybe Greg, you'll like this too. We with the stimulus that's happened and people sort of pulling their checkbooks in, we have about $1 trillion of excess savings than we had before this started. And so the expectation is that when people are feel comfortable getting out, that they're probably going to spend a lot, and you're going to see. Yeah, I know. You know, as an economist, we think that there'll be a sharp boom in service spending. It's interesting. We've actually spent more money on goods over the last 12 months than we spent the 12 months before. And a lot of that is, you know, getting your house fixed and, you know, sitting around staring at that Amazon screen and saying, yes, buy this, send it to cart. You know, we're hooked on that. But we haven't been able to spend the money on the services that we want. And a lot of that is eating out or going to the movies or wherever. And the expectation is that we're pretty, you know, ready to go. It's time to get out and do that. And I agree with you. As people get their shots and feel comfortable, they're gonna go back out. So we're hoping that fits there. Let me ask you the next question to get us started, because it obviously had a big impact. But talk to me about the impacts that it's had on your workers or the people you work with. What's it been like to try to manage the ups and downs, and also just understanding that they're going through things also?
Me?
Yeah, start with you, and then we'll work our way back the other way. Yes.
Well, it has been interesting managing the staff, because they do have families and they have children and they have parents, you know, that are going through this too. You know, we had one of our kitchen staff had children that were in one of the schools in Danville, and they went back to school, and then they had been exposed, and so they had to be tested, and then the parent had to be tested, and so we were, you know, short-staffed, and we would like to be able to deliver meals, but we don't have enough employees, and we don't have enough business to hire a person just for deliveries. And, you know, there's kind of a lot of, it's not just a seesaw. It's like one of those teeter-totters where there's a point in the middle and there's just this big thing, you know, you're balancing just everything every day. And it's very stressful. You know, there's just a lot of things in motion to try to balance and make it work. And sometimes you're more successful than others.
Ramsey, how about for your employees and the people you work with? What's it been like?
Well, I echo a lot of what Alisa is saying. It's been the same for us as well. You know, we don't really have, you know, a shop that people come to necessarily. We spend a lot of time going out showing properties or looking at properties to list. So our interactions are probably not as many maybe as say in the restaurant business, but we have been faced with a lot of scares. We've had 1 or 2 folks to have COVID. The scares are probably worse than that. If you have COVID, then you can kind of get a feel of what kind of reaction your body's going to have to it and so forth. But just the not knowing, hey, I was around a family member who tested for COVID this weekend, and, you know, what shall I do? And so they typically go get tested, and then you have to go back and trace where they've been. And, you know, you're worried about kids and grandkids, but especially, you know, older folks. But from our agent's perspective, I think what I would say is, you know, we've had to go from being proactive with our clients, because we do provide, as a lot of the folks here on the panel today, you know, guidance for our folks through the process of from the first day we meet them and until we get hopefully away from the closing table. And what I've tried to tell our folks and what we've tried to do with people is kind of gauge each person's comfort level. Now, granted, we have people who say, I'm not looking for a house right now, or I'm not going to sell my house. I don't want people coming in and out, home inspectors and people looking and appraisers and final walkthroughs. But even the people who want to remain active in real estate to buy and sell, we just kind of left it up to them. And of course, we've tried to abide by all of the things that we're supposed to be doing, like washing our hands and antibacterial and wearing masks. But, you know, clients are different. Everybody is different. And, you know, we try to accommodate them and still make them comfortable throughout the process.
Greg, how about you had banks, you had branches closed, then you had people doing things that they'd never done before and opened back up. What's it been like with the staff around you?
It's been a challenge. So whenever the branches closed, the interior closed, the drive-throughs were open. So we had to communicate with a lot of clients who would come in and needed to do change orders and those kind of things. We would allow them to come in with an appointment. I think some of the biggest changes were initially, we just didn't know what was going on. I mean, we operate in 20 states. So, you know, every state was different. But here in this area, you know, first it was the adoption of the mask. Well, if you're a teller and you're out in the lobby, you wear a mask the entire time. I'm fortunate to be in an office where I can take mine off. Well, when the mask first started, that no one was accustomed to the mask, so it was a challenge in itself. Sort of fast forward on to June when we opened back up, here comes the major challenge. No one would ever think that you would wear a mask coming into a bank. So suddenly we're open with people coming into the bank wearing masks. And you know, at that time, masks were not standardized. Some were bandanas, some were, you know, I don't know what they're called, the gaiters that come up from below. So that was really that was really an anxious time. Right around that same time, we're in summer. So now we're dealing with children being home who had already been home for 3 months during the school year. So staffing concerns there, concerns with COVID, with people coming in, the stress where some people didn't want to wear masks and some did. We won't get into politics on that, but that was a challenge as well, trying to really adhere to the standards. It's been a whirlwind. I will say the staff has been phenomenal. They have endured some things. For me personally, up until 2020, I did not manage people. I was a commercial banker. I was on my own. And January 1, I inherited the leadership of our branches. No one told me in 60 days I would have to deal with COVID. So,
congratulations.
That in itself was a challenge because they're being led by someone who is new in that role. And then we have COVID, which no one understands. So it was a challenging time. We have made it through up until this point, and now we'll wait to see what is next.
So as a guy who's depositing business stuff through that drive-through and wanted to do 5 or 6 different things at that window, and the line's 9 cars behind me, that must have been just horrible trying to figure out the protocols of how you get people through those drive-throughs.
Well, see, those were the clients that we would ask to come in. It was sort of on an exception basis because of the fact that it would take a lot of time. So we had to navigate through it. So we did it.
Maybe I should have been. My branch didn't let me come into the office, so maybe I should have been with
you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too. Tim, how about you? You've got people doing all sorts of things. How was that?
I mean, kind of jumping off of that. I think flexibility and patience is probably what we've learned more than anything else. The anxiety, the stress that comes with COVID and having to deal with it. We've all had to learn how to do things different.
Yep.
And we've had to learn how to be patient, and we've learned how to deal with somebody not being here for 14 days, which is typically unusual.
Yep.
And I mean, I think waiting in those, I'm the same guy in that bank line doing 5 different things.
Yep.
And so that's a challenge, but I hate going to the bank, right? I do everything I can online, but ultimately, and I used to go inside when I had to go to the bank, which was not very often, but to wait in that line behind 6 other cars, like, you've got to learn to be patient, right? I mean, just like family, you really learn to appreciate your family during this time, because you probably spent more time with them, especially if you had to quarantine, or if you had to quarantine as a group, which I had to do a couple times. You know, you learn how to work from home, you learn how to deal with usually it's 3 or 4 hours that you see your family during the week, or for me anyway, at night, and that's all. And so you'd see them for 4 or 5 days in a row, and that could be a lot. I mean, so you have to remember, and I think ultimately learn to appreciate that. Again, you know, maybe a renewed appreciation for it.
I think we probably just defined COVID by saying we have to get comfortable with change, be more patient, and enjoy spending time with our teenage kids. That's probably about the definition of 2020, I think, for everybody. Is it getting easier with your employees, Tim? I mean, are things settling down and we got to that point, or is it still out there in the future?
I think we got really to that pretty quickly.
Okay.
You live through your first COVID case on a job. So we're doing a project in Halifax, a big courthouse renovation, and a plumber's helper comes down with it. Yep. And so the first time that happens, it's kind of like when you have a new baby at home, right? You go to measures that are way beyond what I think really is necessary. You shut the job down for 3 days. You clean every surface that it is. And now when it happens, you do a contact trace. You find out who he's really been in contact with per the rules. You clean the area that he was in, and you go back to work. Yep. And so that happened to us early on. It's happened to us a few times. It's happened to us here in the office where a spouse has been exposed but didn't necessarily have it, but we end up, you know, we go get tested. When I found out I had it, I got tested because a coworker's spouse had been exposed, and a bunch of us got tested. And I found out that I had it. And I had it apparently for all week long, and sat here at my desk and worked right along. I had no idea. Yeah. And 5 days later, I tested negative for it. So,
congratulations on the asymptomatic. That's the best to get, right? So I'm going to transition and let you keep talking. Now's the crystal ball time. So as you look forward for the next couple years, let's assume that sometime this summer, this fall, we get as many people vaccinated as we need, we reach some herd immunity, and we start heading forward. What do you think has changed in your business that's going to be permanent? And also, what around you think is changed in your life? What's here to stay? What was permanent in the changes?
So I think people have gotten a lot more comfortable with working remotely, right? So that'll stay to a certain extent. If you're not feeling well for a day, stay home and log in from the house, because now you've kind of got the kinks worked out of that because you've done it enough days in a row that you're comfortable with it. I mean, I've had the ability to do it for 10 years and have only this year or this past year and now when I sit at my desk at home, it looks exactly like it looks right here. It's exactly as messy and everything. The appreciating the family part, I think, is something else that we carry with us, right? That we have maybe, especially in losing friends or almost losing friends or family through the COVID, it makes you appreciate things more, things that you could easily lose. And so I think it's important to take the time and spend with your family and not be a workaholic. So maybe we've learned some of those lessons. I think I have learned those lessons. And to be flexible and more patient. You know, I think that's waiting in line at a restaurant is better than not being able to go to the restaurant at all. So and the travel. I go back to, I try to take a weekend, or Gretchen and I try to take 2 weekends a year, and we haven't done it in a year and a half, and it really takes a toll when you can't get away, even if it's just for a day or two.
It does. What do you see for the construction business, for your business, for the next couple of years? Are you optimistic? Is it going to be wide open?
I don't have a feel for that. I mean, I'm hoping that we'll see prices come back down from where they're headed right now, but we haven't seen that. We haven't seen the reality of that yet. And with online things growing, Amazon has a little bit more than a quarter of the steel industry tied up right now. Yep. And that's where a lot of that steel supply shortages come from. And so surely that plays out over the next 14 months, and things start to normalize. But I think businesses are a lot like the common people, that they have money. They've not been spending money. They've been saving it, especially ones that aren't in the hospitality or retail industries. And I think with the reshoring that we kind of already started to see, the reshoring over the last 5 years, I think we'll see more of that now, which is good for our region from a industrial manufacturing standpoint, especially with when things reshore, they will be more high-tech jobs. They will be more automated. It will not be 1,000 employees. It'll be a fraction of that, but the equipment that is there and the skill level of folk that it takes to run that equipment and work on that equipment will be higher, and that will lead to higher paying jobs and kind of raising that tide.
Yeah, I think that the data out there would suggest you're correct. We were reshoring before this started. It's accelerated, but you also get I think corporate understanding now that some redundancy in their supply chains makes more sense than having. And we'll ask this a little bit later about the next disruption y'all all see, but I don't think anybody's naive enough to think there won't ever be a disruption again. Alisa, how about you? Looking forward a couple years, and we're all going to come out and go eat right away and book our parties for Christmas now, and prepay, which would be good for everybody. But what do you hope to see over the next couple years as we move forward?
Well, I guess I hope things go back to the way they were. We can't eat remotely.
No,
it's not, Zoom, having lunch Zoom is not fun at all. So, we really want to see those people gathering back in this place. And, we're so fortunate to have such a large building here that we have had lots of people that have said they've come here because they feel comfortable here where they haven't felt comfortable other places. And, we're really proud of that. And, like I said, the birthday groups and the ladies who lunch and clubs and those kind of things. We want to get back to that kind of thing and venue type gatherings and things. And I'll say too that I think employment is going to be an issue in our industry. I don't know what the government's going to do about the unemployment situation, but I had a couple of vacancies that came up and I had a real hard time filling them because that unemployment, it's hard to come off of that for, $10 or $11 an hour. And plus have to drive to Chatham. I had several people that, applied and then never followed up with an interview or anything because it just wasn't worth their time. So I see that as an ongoing negative issue.
Yeah. The data there would suggest that we've lost about 4 million people out of the workforce that are no longer looking for work. And that was if y'all remember, it's hard to remember just pre-COVID, but we were at record low unemployment back then. So the unemployment rates are still up a little, but you have to be counted as employed to get the unemployment insurance payments. And so a lot of people are there, but whether or not people, and it turns out it's especially women with children in school age, whether or not they enter the workforce again in the numbers is something that I don't think anybody can predict right now. The Richmond Fed has done a lot of work on that, if any of the listeners want to look on their site, but they've looked closely at what's happening to people in the workforce. But I agree with you that we're going to have workforce shortages as we go forward.
Well, and I tell you, that's another thing that's been kind of interesting that I haven't had to deal with terribly much up to this point was unemployment. You know, suddenly I had employees that quit,
yeah,
that wanted to file unemployment.
Yeah.
and then when they got denied, they wanted to appeal it. And then we had one person who had never worked for us before who applied for unemployment.
From you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
been an adventure.
That's brazen. Okay.
Right, I don't know them.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Ramsey, how about you? And what do you see going forward? And you said before that inventories were low. And as Tim said, prices have been going up on materials. That's true of housing too. Interest rates, I don't think can get much lower. What do you think the next 2 years look like in your world?
Well, I think first of all, technology is going to continue to evolve. It already has been. One of the things that I would say, and kind of along with what Greg was saying with the banking industry, I can't tell you how many times I've dealt with people remotely from 15 minutes away from the office to 2 hours away to 4 states away. And I would say to them, hey, let's go ahead and sign your contract using, electronic signature app. And the first thing they would say is, holy cow, I'm not a computer. I said, look, there's 4 steps. I'm going to send it to you. You accept the terms and conditions. You're going to establish your signature electronically or by, using it on your computer pad. It's going to tell you exactly where to point and click to. You can't miss signatures or initials. And you hit finish at the bottom and you're done. But I think what has happened is more and more people, I think COVID has made more people open up their mind to use the technology. So I think that's maybe getting ahead of our discussion today. But then I wanted to also, kind of speak a little bit. All of our industries cross each other. And I would focus to say on what Tim was saying about materials and so forth. I think for a long time, the cost of building a house in this area versus buying what we would call a gently used house that may need some updates and systems and so forth. To me, that's what's propped up our housing market, or at least one of the things that has. It has really propped it up. And I think it's one of the culprits of us having a supply and demand problem right now because, I've had a lot of folks say, hey, I got a builder coming over and he's going to quote me a price tonight. And, I hear from them the next couple of days and they're like, holy cow, that's just not going to work. What can you show me as far as inventory is concerned? So I think I guess my point today is there's so many factors associated with our housing. And, yes, interest rates are at historic lows, but we are seeing, some yields coming up in the bond markets, which are going to force rates up a little bit. We've already started seeing that. So we're certainly keeping an eye on interest rates, but we're also keeping an eye out on what's going on with building materials. And if more people decide to buy land and build houses, then that's certainly going to help with supply and demand as well. I just don't see us catching up very quickly right now with the truly seller's market that we have in our area at this point.
Yeah, in the middle of all of this, we actually, condo we owned in Raleigh, the people that bought it were from New York. They never saw the place before they bought it. They saw videos. We never saw them. We never saw our real estate agent. We just clicked and clicked. And next thing you know, money was in the bank. So that was the best one we've ever done.
Yes, it's definitely happening. And 2 quick examples is that we now have a COVID-19 addendum. If something happens in the transaction, both parties agree to give a little more time for closing or, this type of thing. And then, we also have something called a sight unseen addendum that we get buyers to sign because they've never seen the property, just to kind of put them on notice that anything can happen. So it's definitely created those type situations.
Greg, how about you? You got your crystal ball out for what the banking world looks like, and especially the commercial side of it going forward the next 24 months?
Crystal ball is very cloudy, but we're going to try. You know, I do agree with Tim that the remote worker is probably not going to stop. I mean, I think, and there are some concerns there. When you look at commercial banking, if you have an office and your staff is working from home, do you as a business owner need that office? So does that get to the point where we start to see offices becoming vacant because workers are working from home? The Zoom meetings, the virtual meetings, I don't think they will go away. It is definitely a quick way to meet. That I had a client, Wally, that normally that we would meet in person, we met by Zoom, a WebEx call, but basically the same thing. I don't think that's going to go away. Some of the things, the scan and go options, that if you've gone into Sam's lately, there's 20 registers and there's one person working there, and everyone has their phone out and they're scanning items as they go through, and you never even go through the line. You pay on an app and you leave. So you have to question, well, what does that do with employment numbers as we're going? So there are certain things that may change because of the COVID that may not be necessarily a positive long run. And those are the kind of things that I'm trying to keep my thumb on the pulse of. You know, rates are extremely low. I think Tim said it. There are a lot of business owners that have pent up demand that have not bought things because of fear of COVID, that we're starting to get feelers about, you know, what we think rates will do. A banker is definitely the wrong person to ask about that. But, you know, so what I imagine is you're going to start to see these companies buying more. The automation is going to happen, which again can impact employment numbers. So there's a lot of things that we're sort of keeping our eyes on to see what it does. It's a domino effect. So that's where the crystal ball gets really cloudy. And I wish I could see the back end of that.
Well, Lori said that I could push you guys because y'all were really smart and she knew you all. So we've got 4 industries here, but there are industries we haven't touched on. So let's use our collective thinking for a minute and talk about it, what you think is going to happen in a few of those things we haven't talked about. So, and Greg, well, let's start. What do you think is going to happen with retail? Is the world's going to buy everything from Amazon, and we're going to have a lot of vacant storefronts, or what's the mix going to be?
If the trend that we see now, it continues, I think that's right on point. I mean, I think it's really become easy. I mean, we've gotten to the point now where everything we're doing is really virtual, and you have to ask yourself, is that person who is able to shop from their couch at 11 o'clock at night going to suddenly change and go to the mall at, you know, between whatever hours that it's open? I know, speaking for me individually, I do very little shopping in a mall setting, that I will go to like the outlets because I think it's a great family outing, but I don't envision the large scale malls being something that you're going to see built anymore for certain. And I think you're going to continue seeing them going dark.
Well, anybody else want to jump in on retail, what they think? Ramsey, Lisa, Tim, what do you think is going to happen with retail?
I'll take a stab at it. I think that I think it's going to be up, obviously, to the consumer. Obviously, the big box stores and the online and those types of places make it very easy, make it very cheap. But I think with all of the unemployment and small businesses struggling throughout, especially our areas such as ours that are rural, I think as more and more people understand what the impacts of buying online and saving a few bucks does to the mom and pop stores in our communities, who we live in neighborhoods with and who we buy from or go to church with or, you know, go out to eat with, you know, I think there will be a step back from folks dealing with online. So I certainly hope that is the case. And, you know, I think, you know, that's probably the best chance that some of the mom and pop stores that have suffered and or are out of business these days have going forward.
I'd like to address that a little bit too. You know, I think we have 2 different kinds of buying. We have necessities, and then we have shopping as entertainment.
Yep.
You know, I'm going to keep on buying my dog food from chewy.com. But if I'm, you know, looking for an outing with my mom or my daughter or to meet my girlfriends, I'm still going to be looking for a place where I can go and have a wonderful experience and find some pretty things and get some pleasure out of the experience. So I think that experience-driven retail is still going to be just strong or stronger than ever. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I look like the oldest guy here. I remember when retail was all small, and then, you know, then we went to malls, and then we went to power. I mean, retail's never been standing still. It's always been moving. So I think we'll expect it to continue to move. And I agree with you that you're still going to buy some things online because of convenience, but
light bulbs and
yeah, I mean, you know, in my case, yard mulch, where they deliver it to my front door and lay it in a little pile rather than me having to go get it and lift it. Yep, I'm going to continue to order that online, but you know,
we don't have that, Ted.
Send me that link. Send me that link.
You don't do that? Oh, well,
we don't have that here.
No, we gotta go get it.
Well, Tim will bring it to you. It'll work out. Let me switch gears. What about healthcare? I did a survey yesterday with a young leadership group in another state and asked them what they thought the biggest impacts were going to be post-COVID. One of them said remote work, and I agree. I think we would all agree that remote is here to stay for a lot of people. But the second thing they said was telemedicine, that we've all of a sudden been trained that healthcare doesn't have to be delivered exactly the way we thought it was delivered before. What do y'all think about that?
I don't disagree with that. I'd say that that's been a harder thing for the folks that are here at Blair to get comfortable with. It's something that we've offered for about 3 years. It comes with the insurance. You put an app on your phone. You make the request. The people call you back. They can FaceTime with you. We've used it. It's been great, but I'm not sure that it's a widely accepted thing, even with our young folks that are here. And we've got a pretty robust staff of younger folks here, at least in our office environment here. You know, I think a year ago, I was super concerned about doctors and nurses wanting to be in a rural environment and being able to pay them enough to be in that rural environment. And I think COVID maybe helps that, because people want to be in a rural environment more now than what they did. But I think that goes back to Ramsey's point, which is my point in a lot of different meetings that I'm in, is that we've got to get this broadband thing figured out. We've got to get access. We've got to get access in rural parts of Virginia. There are places on 29. I'm looking out 29 out my window right here, and there's a lady that works with me upstairs who lives right on 29 that can't get internet. She does not have an option. So when I live on 40 between here and Rocky Mount. I am the last place that you can get internet on 40. So you cannot get it. And 40 is that's a main drag. It's not a 4-lane road or anything, but it's a main drag that connects, two good sized small towns in rural Virginia.
Anybody think that movie theaters are going to make a complete comeback? Or have we learned now how to stream entertainment? Are we going to go back out to the movies or the theaters or anywhere?
No.
I'm going. No. You don't have to go, Greg. I'll go.
I'm going too. I love it, but popcorn doesn't taste the same. I think we want to be entertained. Our living rooms are getting a little bit old, I think, but I don't know.
I think the movie theaters are doing what all of us on this panel are doing, and every business is doing, and they're adapting.
Yep.
And I know locally in Danville at the theater, they are making available small groups, where you can go and, see a movie on a Saturday afternoon with 25 people of your choice, for a fee and so forth. So, and then I wanted to kind of go back to the healthcare part, not that I know what's going to happen in healthcare. I'm not very versed on that, but I would just say that there's got to be something done, just like we've got to improve broadband. We've got to do something, especially for small business owners and also such as agents who are actually independent contractors, to be able to have affordable health care. And, you know, I think that's lacking right now. I know in our industry that we are working diligently to try to make some inroads and progress as far as a realtor association being looked at from a group policy. You know, I think that that certainly is causing a lot of folks to struggle, and you know, there's certainly some ripple effects for that from a financial standpoint to families.
Yeah. Yeah. Ramsey, you've had, I think you've thought about this a little bit. Looking forward, are there other areas you think, you mentioned healthcare costs, you mentioned connectivity, which I think are both key for businesses going forward, but for any of us to be able to operate, are there other things that that you think are critical as we move forward that for your region, for the Dan River region and others, are going to be important to the region's ongoing success?
Well, the only thing that I would say that really kind of has my attention, and it's something we haven't talked about today, and that is the fact that we're going to get probably in 2023 a casino. And I think as you know, financially and economically and tax base wise and so forth, you know, that is something that is going to have some advantages, but it's also going to, you know, create some challenges for us as well, whether that's traffic or whether it's, you know, folks who may have, you know, issues with casinos and personal things. Just from a real estate perspective, I'm not sure we have enough. Well, I would say we don't have enough housing from a rental perspective for folks that are going to come here to work in the construction industry to get that facility built. The ongoing jobs that's going to create. If you think we have a shortage right now, if we don't start having a conversation, it's going to be a huge problem for us in the next couple of 3 years. So I think the county and the city, I'm sure are, you know, working together and are aware of that. I know we haven't really seen a lot come out, but I think it is something that we should focus on in the next couple of years as soon as we can.
Anybody else have thoughts on that, or other things that we haven't brought up that you want to look into your crystal ball going forward that we ought to be working on or concerned about? All right, well, jump in whenever you want. We had a couple questions that were emailed in prior to this getting started. One of them was to Ramsey's point, Tim talked about it too, about the technology issue. Not only is there a lack for some people, there's also a gap that we have that is sort of systemic in society. It's not just that broadband isn't available everywhere, it's that it's pretty expensive in places for people who can't afford it. Any way we can address that, or how would you suggest to the leadership in the area that they try to deal with it? Go on, Tim. I saw that smile. So if you got a solution, just spit it out, man. You know, it's great.
So that's like the $100 million question, right?
$100 billion, might be 100 trillion. I don't know.
Right. So, I mean, I think we were excited when the new administration took office in Richmond, and that was something that he made a priority, and at least he said he was going to make a priority. And when COVID happened, that fell down the priority list, I think, pretty far. We're seeing it's just so roughshod the way that it's being rolled out. If your community is willing, or if you have a local electrical cooperative, some of the local electrical cooperatives are moving forward with helping to roll out an answer. Others are saying, I don't want anything to do with it.
Yep. And
I mean, there's two cooperatives that are within 3 miles, 4 miles of me. One of them is involved in it. The other one says, I don't want anything to do with it. And so, until the counties and cities of Virginia decide that they're going to figure out a way to find the resources to help fund it. I think there's money out there, but the locality's got to come to the table in some method with some money to be able to partner with somebody to get it done, because the last mile is just too far in a lot of places. So, I mean, I say that, I complain about internet on Route 40 between Gretna and Rocky Mount. There's also no cable. You know, there is no cable television provider. I mean, and for a lot of Pennsylvania County, there's no. So, I mean, is there a place for somebody that provides multiple kinds of services like that to plug in? I don't know. I mean, it needs to be a business model for somebody that's incentivized by either a local group or a local government, or really, I think, a group of all of the above.
All of the above. Anybody else thoughts? Solutions would be good too if anybody's got any. We like solutions. Yeah, we've done a lot of work on rural strategies around the country, and just finished a project on the strategic plan for the Tobacco Commission in North Carolina, which is called the Golden Leaf. And when we went out and talked to people, they said, you got to fix broadband first. And, you know, they've got $1.5 billion endowment. They couldn't begin to fix broadband. If, you know, it's even above what they can do. So I think it is the issue. We tell people the 3 issues that prevent rural areas in America from moving forward are access to health care. A lot of rural America doesn't have it. Quality of K-12 funding, because what's happened in America is urban areas have supplemented state funding in most places. And so you end up with schools with twice the funding per pupil at the city level as you do in the rural areas, and broadband. And those 3 issues, if we want to deal with the urban-rural divide in America, those are 3 issues we're going to have to deal with. And the divide's gotten deeper as we've gone forward. So obviously, in your region, you have a little bit of all. You have city, you have some rural, you have some very rural also, places that really count. One of the other questions we got is, so what have you learned that's going to help you get ready for the next major disruption? Whether that's a pandemic or a hurricane or a cyber attack or weather something. Have you learned from this last year things you're going to do a little different? Let's see. Let's start with Greg. You haven't talked in the last few minutes. I'm sorry. On my screen, you're right there. It works perfect.
So. Well, I'll tell you. So I came into banking right before the housing bubble burst, and then COVID. So pandemics, I've been through 2 just monstrosities of sorts. You know, what I will say that I've learned from them both is to control what we control. I mean, we don't control everything. Tim made a valid point. Patience. Patience is the key. I mean, that everyone wants an answer today. Well, there's not always an answer to be given. So we have to learn to be patient. And I think, you know, coming out of the 08, from a business perspective, for the first few years, businesses were very conservative and frugal, and then they went back to the 2005 and 6 time period. I think we have to learn to not repeat the mistakes, and we have to not just focus on the here and now, but plan for the future. That's the best advice I can give.
Good advice. The good news is that the consumer got a little smarter after 2007 and 8. The savings rate in America almost doubled, went from about a little over 4% to almost 7.5%. It's currently sitting at 14%. So we might get a little smarter, but I think businesses also learn to put a little more cushion in. So maybe we learned a couple things, but I agree with you that resiliency is one of the watchwords for the future. Ramsey, what about you? What have you taken away from this that helps you prepare for what we all hope won't be the next time?
Well, I think we have to be, where I said earlier today, we're kind of reactive to our clients' needs and how fast or not fast or what they feel like as far as the pandemic is concerned. I think the opposite should be for folks like on this panel and many other folks, everybody in our community, we need to be focused on sharing of ideas across industries, within industries. And I think that we have to be proactive in our thinking. We have to reach out to our elected officials, let them know what's going on. But I really think it's a lot about, the sharing of information. If my industry is struggling, then we need to let our folks know on that from a local perspective, a state and a national perspective as well. And I would just say that we need to be, we all as human beings tend to be Monday morning quarterbacks. Yeah. And I just think that we need to try to figure out what the solutions are, think outside of the box, and just try to be part of the solution instead of just sitting on our hands wondering, who's going to do what to help us.
That's smart, I think. Alisa, how about you?
Well, I'll agree with Tim also about flexibility and patience. And I would add one more thing of a little grace. Let's extend a little grace to one another and give each other a little slack. We're all trying, we're all doing the best we can in unusual circumstances. And if we can learn to give each other a little bit of room, we'll all be better off.
Grace is my mother's word also. She thinks that if we could just throw a pinch of kindness into us while we understand that everybody we talk to today is having a day where they're dealing with issues too.
Right.
For most everybody. Yeah.
Yes.
Tim, how about you? What are you doing to get ready for the next one?
I don't know. I don't know that you can ever really get ready. I think you've got the lessons that we've learned. I don't think any of us will forget anytime soon. We try to be flexible to start with, right? So it wasn't I hate change. I really don't like it. And I don't mind it, but I don't like change for the sake of change. I like change for the sake of making things better and more efficient. And I think some of the changes that we've kind of been forced to make during this make the world a better place. They make it easier for people to do their jobs. They make it easier for people to communicate. Lord knows how much time I've saved by not having to drive to South Boston for a meeting or drive to Martinsville for a meeting. I mean, those places are an hour away from me. And if you have an hour-long meeting, all of a sudden that's half your day. And if it doesn't start until 11 o'clock, that's your whole day. So I've really appreciated some of that. And I hope that some of that stays, especially with some more governmental. I know with governmental, it's typically not allowed, but they've made some exceptions because of COVID. I hope some of that stays around for some of these boards and commissions. But the flexibility part, the remote working part, I think those are things that kind of keep you on your toes and keep you ready. And being as knowledgeable as you can about what's going on, so that when people ask you for your advisement, you are giving them real answers that are based in fact and truth. I think those are the things those are the only things you can really do to prepare.
So Lori, I've been asking general questions and getting really smart answers. Have we got questions from the people listening in that might challenge us a little?
There is one question that's come up, and this one is for Ramsey, talking about housing in the community and the imbalance in the supply and demand. And I think we've all seen that, around here. How, when, I don't know, do you think the market's ever going to catch up with that demand? I mean, what would it take?
Well, I think it's going to be a couple of things. I've already talked about the things that have driven our market to where it is right now. And I think, generally, if you think about all the people who have come here from out of our market, and a lot of times they were cash buyers. They have come here, maybe sight unseen, maybe not, and they've pushed out the traditional buyers that we have that need to get financing done, and sometimes not getting home inspections and so forth. So what has happened is, I think that's what's driving this imbalance right now. At least one part of it And I think once those folks from other markets stop coming here for whatever reason, you know, however they're affected by COVID and so forth, I think that's going to help matters a little bit. I think as building materials hopefully come back down, people are going to build homes more. So then those buyers are not looking for existing homes, right? I think when people, you know, we talked about vaccines and so forth, once those people are getting vaccines and they're feeling more comfortable and they have a life event that happens, you know, they're retiring or they want a larger home because they're expanding their family. Unfortunately, a death occurs or a marriage, you know, any of those things are going to have an effect on increasing inventory and homes for sale. So it's not, you know, it's just not one thing. I think there's a lot of different things. Interest rates, as they continue to tick up, is going to be, you know, that's going to help matters as well, because that's going to hurt the affordability of some buyers and trying to be in the market. So, yeah, I mean, everything really always comes back around. It gets balanced. I certainly don't think that the housing seller's market that we're in right now is going to be here for very long, but I can tell you, you can ask any agent, you can ask any buyer and seller right now, it is definitely something we've never seen.
Yeah, we just had a comment from Rachel Gatewood. I see you, Rachel. She said, if Greg will give us a loan and Tim will build it for us and Alisa will provide lunch and Ramsey will bring the buyers and tenants, she'd build some houses. So thank you, Rachel. That is
I think I got the good part of that deal.
Just say, I don't know. It depends on what the loan rates are, but it might work out for everybody. I think that one of the things, just to answer the question from our end on what we learned, is that we both personally and professionally are trying to look at resiliency differently. You know, we do work with a lot of groups, and we had a futures group that we asked the question, what's likely to be the next disruption? And unfortunately, the group came back with cybersecurity as their answer to that. And then somebody a lot smarter than I was described to me what would happen with a major cyber attack that might hit the internet, might hit the power grid. And so we've gone, we keep everything now stored in the cloud like everybody else does, but we also keep one hard computer not connected to anything with all of our records on it. It's you know, it's plugged in, it's charged, but it's not connected to anything that would allow it to be impacted. So it's like, some of you might remember 20 years ago, you put hard disk in a vault and kept those. I'm sure the banks still do that, but we did that. We put a generator in just to be a little more resilient than we were before. But we also started spending more time talking to our existing clients and dealing with them and trying to understand what they were going through. So I think that there is a level that y'all have talked about of we've been kept from being personal with meetings, but we probably have all tried harder to connect with people best we can. And I'm hoping there's some residual about that takes place. I wanted to give the panelists a chance, now that we're toward the end of this, to ask any questions they might have of each other, or me, or Lori. Lori gets to get in here and get answers to questions. But is there anything that you've been thinking about that we didn't talk about today that you wish you knew the answers to, or you were thinking about?
Well, just tongue in cheek, my question or comment is for Alisa, because we use her restaurant a lot for takeouts, and my favorite sandwich down there is whatever's got turkey on it. But I'm going to ask this question on behalf of the staff here, and just to make sure that there's not going to be any interruption in supply of cakes at your restaurant.
The cakes are coming. The cakes are coming.
Yeah, Ted, the next time you come up this way, we'll take you to Alisa's place so you can experience that.
I would like that, although I'm wondering if I could order a cake online. Is that possible?
Yes, you can. You can order a cake online.
All right, well, wait a minute. What's the website here?
It may be a little bit of a problem, but you can order it.
Oh, well. All right. It's just got to get to the North Carolina coast is all it has to do.
Well, now, wait a minute.
I volunteer.
Do a little DoorDash. You want to do a little trade here? We got
possible. That could work out.
Well, you can see the water out my window, so it's not too bad. As I was showing Lori before, you also see the alligators out my window. So
I'm not scared.
This is unfortunately, these kind of things happen. So, any closing thoughts from anyone before we close up today and try to move forward? I'll show my alligator for today for anybody who likes alligators.
I want to ask Ramsey a question.
Go ahead.
Ramsey, with the housing shortage, the only places that I see that houses are really being built are on kind of these postage stamp lots that are right on the road. Mm-hmm. Will a housing development ever come back to our community, or will that be something that is cost prohibitive? Because when you compare that, the cost of doing the development with the environmental regulations that go along with it, and putting a road in that's up to VDOT standards, does a housing development ever come back?
I think one thing to remember, and again, I'm not a builder, but I remember the reasoning behind why self-contained subdivisions, one entrance in, one entrance out, started to fade away in our area, because I believe there was a law passed in the state that said you had to have another way out. And that's putting it very simply. But I believe that has now changed a little bit. It was kind of a one-size-fits-all rule that happened in our state. The ones that I've been familiar with or have worked with people on have been tracts of land that, in a rural location, that the soil would have suitable perk locations and so forth. But our subdivision laws in Pennsylvania County says you have to subdivide those, and based on the zoning, you have to have so much square foot versus, so much road frontage, whether it's on agricultural, residential, that type of thing. So I think all of those have been very, very successful, even to the point where I was involved in one a couple of years ago, and I just had about 8 or 9 of those lots for resale from people. And within the last 3 months, all of those lots except for one has sold out. So I think that people are buying those lots. They want to build houses. I think they're just trying to time the whole, building material cost thing. It's interesting. I just had a gentleman who's a professional in that area call me today about a subdivision that was established probably 8 or 10 years ago that has a lot of existing lots. And we just talked about the fact that the reason probably why those lots are not selling is because they probably are too small. You talk about postage stamp lots. So really, I told him, if you got a hold of that subdivision, if you could just take 3 lots and make it into 2, then I think that would probably, be a lot better scenario. I just don't, I think it boils down to the infrastructure, of having to put in roads and grading and, public water and sewer, and does that exist where those subdivisions are going to be established? And I think that's probably, again, being cost prohibitive, and that's why you haven't seen that happen. I will continue to think that we will, see farms out in rural locations, maybe 2 or 3, 4 miles outside of the city, to be subdivided and giving everybody a little bit of road frontage. That's what I see happening continually in our area, versus, those subdivisions you talk about.
Thank you.
Thanks. So Lori, I'm going to turn it back over to you after I just thank the panel. Very thoughtful today, very very energetic. I think optimistic is what I think I heard also. So I know I am that we're going to see a pretty bright light as we head forward. But thanks for letting me be part of this today, Lori, and I hope the work of the Danville Regional Foundation continues to try to help us all see a little bit better future as we go forward.
Thank you, Ted. Yes, I heard a lot of optimism today too, and it's very encouraging. Thank you to all the panelists. This was a great conversation. I love listening. Not working in these fields, I find it interesting to hear the things that y'all have been dealing with, and I really like that last point about grace. I think to close this out is talking about grace and showing grace to each other. And one of the things that I've done that I'll share with you in my meetings that I have is I always start a meeting saying, thank you for being here. Let's all understand that we're dealing with things that are very different, but we're all here with the best of intentions and with the best information that we have available. And I think that when you start off on that foot, that helps a lot. And I want to thank each of y'all for showing up with the best of intentions and being thoughtful and sharing with all of us. So thank you again. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you all again soon.
Thanks.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.